Does the arrival of March make you feel both excited and completely overwhelmed? You know the gardening season is here, but the list of chores seems endless. You see your neighbors getting started, and you wonder, am I already behind? What if I told you there's a simple day-by-day plan that turns that March chaos into a calm, productive, and foolproof strategy for your best garden ever? Stick around, because in this video, we're not just giving you a to-do list. We're giving you the ultimate March gardening calendar, breaking down exactly what to do and when to ensure a season of incredible growth. You might be surprised to learn that the most important task for Monday has nothing to do with digging at all. March is the month of gardening whiplash. One day it feels like spring, with warm sunshine and chirping birds. The next, a surprise frost reminds you that winter hasn't quite released its grip. This constant back and forth makes March one of the most critical and challenging months for any gardener. It's a transition period where the ground is waking up, but it's also vulnerable. The actions you take now, during this unpredictable window, will directly impact the health of your soil, the success of your seedlings, and the overall bounty of your harvest for the rest of the year. Getting it right in March means setting a powerful foundation. Getting it wrong can mean playing catch-up for months. That's why having a structured plan isn't just helpful, it's essential. Let's kick off our perfect gardening week with the Monday mission, the Great Garden Reconnaissance. Before you touch a single tool, your most important job is to observe. Grab a warm drink and take a slow, deliberate walk through your entire garden space. Where is the snow completely melted? Are there areas where water is pooling? Look for signs of winter damage on your perennials, shrubs, and any existing structures. Note which parts of the garden are getting the most early spring sun. This is also the time to check for any early, unwelcome guests like slugs or emerging weeds. Take notes or even photos with your phone. This initial assessment is your strategic blueprint. It prevents you from making mistakes, like digging in soil that's still far too wet and cold, which can ruin its structure for the whole season. This simple walk-around will inform every single action you take for the rest of the month. With your reconnaissance complete, it's time to clear the canvas. This is the big, satisfying first cleanup. Your goal is to gently remove the debris of winter to let the soil breathe and warm up in the sun. Start by raking away fallen leaves, twigs, and any dead annual plant matter from last year. Be careful around the crowns of your perennial plants, as new growth might just be starting to emerge. Cutting back the dead foliage from ornamental grasses and perennials is a key task now. This not only makes the garden look tidy, but also improves air circulation, which helps prevent fungal diseases from taking hold in the damp spring weather. Removing this winter blanket of debris is like opening the curtains after a long sleep. It signals to the earth and your plants that the growing season is officially ready to begin. Now we move into Tuesday's primary task, waking up the soil. Notice I said, waking up, not beating up. The biggest mistake gardeners make in early spring is being too aggressive with cold, wet soil. If you grab a handful of soil and squeeze it, and it forms a solid, muddy ball, it is too wet to work. Wait, if it crumbles apart, you are good to go. Your job today is to gently loosen the top few inches. Use a garden fork or a broad fork to lift and aerate the soil rather than turning it completely over, which can destroy its delicate structure and harm beneficial earthworms. While you're there, remove any visible weeds that survived the winter, like chickweed or henbit. Getting them now, before they have a chance to set seed, will save you hours of work later on. Think of this as a gentle morning stretch for your garden beds, not a full-blown workout. Before you add anything to your garden, you need to know what it's missing. That brings us to a crucial and often skipped step: soil testing. You wouldn't take medicine without knowing what's wrong, so why guess what your soil needs? A soil test is your garden's diagnostic report. It tells you the pH level, whether your soil is acidic or alkaline, and reveals any major nutrient deficiencies, like a lack of nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium. You can buy simple, do-it-yourself test kits at any garden center, or for a more detailed analysis, you can send a soil sample to your local cooperative extension service. This is incredibly easy to do. You just collect small samples from a few different spots in your garden, mix them together in a bag, and mail it in. The results you get back are the single most valuable piece of information for ensuring your plants will thrive. Armed with the results from your soil test, you can now begin amending the earth. This is the process of adding materials to your soil to improve its physical properties and fertility. This is not a one-size-fits-all task. For nearly every garden, the number one best amendment is high-quality compost. It adds a balanced range of nutrients, improves soil structure, helps retain moisture, and feeds the beneficial microorganisms that are vital for plant health. If your soil test showed your soil is too acidic, you'll need to add garden lime. If it's too alkaline, you might add sulfur or peat moss. If specific nutrients are low, you can add organic fertilizers targeted for those deficiencies. Spread a layer of your chosen amendments, from 2 to 4 inches thick, over the surface of your beds, and gently work it into the top few inches of soil with a rake or fork. You are essentially serving your garden a custom-made, nutritious breakfast to fuel the season's growth. Let's move indoors for Wednesday's workshop, setting up your indoor seed sowing station. Starting seeds inside gives you a huge head start on the growing season, especially for plants that need a long time to mature. You don't need a fancy greenhouse. A simple setup in a spare room or basement will work perfectly. First, gather your supplies: seed trays or small pots with drainage holes, a sterile seed starting mix, and plastic domes or wrap to maintain humidity. The most critical component is light. A sunny windowsill is rarely enough to produce strong, healthy seedlings. You'll want to invest in a simple shop light or a dedicated grow light. Hang the light on an adjustable chain so you can keep it just 2 to 3 inches above the tops of your seedlings as they grow. Having everything clean, organized, and ready to go before you plant a single seed makes the entire process smoother and more successful. With your station ready, it's time to plant the garden superstars, tomatoes and peppers. These heat-loving plants require a long growing season, so starting them indoors in March is non-negotiable in most climates. Fill your clean containers with pre-moistened seed starting mix. Plant the seeds about 1/4 of an inch deep, placing 2 seeds per cell or pot. This gives you a backup in case one doesn't germinate. Lightly cover them with more mix and gently water them in. Label your trays clearly. I repeat, label your trays clearly. You will not remember which variety is which in 2 weeks, I promise. Cover the trays with a plastic dome to lock in humidity, and place them in a warm spot or on a heat mat. Peppers, in particular, love extra warmth to germinate. Now you wait for the magic to happen. You don't need your grow lights on until the first little green shoots emerge from the soil. Next up is the brassica brigade. This family of vegetables includes favorites like broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, kale, and Brussels sprouts. These are all cool weather crops that do best when they mature before the intense heat of summer arrives. Starting them indoors in March allows you to get a jump on the season and transplant them out into the garden as strong, established seedlings in April or May. The process is very similar to starting tomatoes and peppers. Plant the seeds about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch deep in your seed trays. Unlike peppers, these seeds don't typically require a heat mat for germination. Room temperature is usually sufficient. Once they sprout, they need that same direct, intense light from your grow lights, keeping the light source just a couple of inches above the plants. This prevents them from becoming weak, pale, and leggy as they stretch for the light. Don't forget to sow the seeds for an aromatic and colorful future. March is also the perfect time to start many annual flowers and herbs indoors. Flowers like marigolds, zinnias, and cosmos benefit greatly from an indoor start, giving you bigger, better blooms earlier in the season. For herbs, consider starting basil, parsley, oregano, and thyme. Basil in particular is very sensitive to cold and needs that head start to produce a bountiful harvest. The planting process is the same, but pay close attention to seed packet instructions. Some tiny seeds, like those of petunias or snapdragons, may require light to germinate and should only be pressed lightly onto the surface of the soil, not buried. Starting these plants from seed is incredibly cost-effective compared to buying transplants from the nursery, and the variety of choices available to the seed starter is nearly infinite. Let's head back outside for Thursday's triumph, the art of pruning. Pruning in late winter or early spring is one of the most impactful things you can do for the health and productivity of your trees and shrubs. The basic goals of pruning are simple. Remove any dead, damaged, or diseased wood first. Next, prune to improve the plant's structure and increase air circulation by removing branches that are crossing, rubbing against each other, or growing inward toward the center of the plant. Always use sharp, clean pruning shears or saws. A clean cut heals faster and is less susceptible to disease. Make your cuts at a slight angle, about 1/4 of an inch above an outward-facing bud. This encourages the new growth to grow out and away from the plant, creating a more open and healthy shape. Don't be timid, but also don't get carried away. A little strategic pruning goes a long way. When it comes to pruning, timing is everything. A critical rule to remember is this. For flowering shrubs, if it blooms in the summer on new growth, prune it now. If it blooms in the spring on old wood, wait to prune it until after it has finished flowering. This means that March is the perfect time to prune summer-blooming beauties like panicle hydrangeas, butterfly bush, and rose of Sharon. Pruning these plants now encourages them to produce lots of vigorous new stems, and since they form their flower buds on this new growth, more stems means more flowers. However, if you were to prune a spring-blooming shrub like a forsythia, lilac, or azalea right now, you would be cutting off all of the flower buds that formed last year, and you would get no flowers this spring. Know your plants before you make the cut. Roses deserve their own special attention, and March is prime time for their annual haircut. The goal of pruning roses is to encourage strong new canes to grow from the base, which will produce the best flowers. First, as always, remove any dead, damaged, or weak-looking canes, cutting them right back to the base. For modern shrub roses and hybrid teas, you generally want to aim for an open, vase-like shape, with 3 to 5 strong, healthy canes remaining. Prune these remaining canes back by about 1/3 to 1/2 of their length, making your cut just above an outward-facing bud. For climbing roses, the approach is different. You want to preserve the main structural canes and primarily prune the lateral, or side, shoots that grew off them last year, cutting them back to just 2 or 3 buds. This is where this season's flowers will emerge. As we head toward the end of the week, it's time for Friday's focus, direct sowing the hardiest heroes. While it's still too cold for tender crops like tomatoes and cucumbers, there is a whole category of vegetables that not only tolerate the cold, but actually prefer it. These are the vegetables you can plant directly into your prepared garden beds right now. This includes garden peas, spinach, radishes, lettuce, arugula, and other hardy salad greens. Check your seed packets for the exact planting depth. A good rule of thumb is to plant a seed about twice as deep as its width. Plant them in rows, or broadcast the seeds over the bed and gently rake them in. Water the area well after planting and keep it consistently moist. There is something truly magical about seeing those first green seedlings push through the cold March soil. It's the first real sign of the harvest to come. While you're planting outside, let's talk about rooting for success with 2 other spring staples, onion sets and seed potatoes. Onion sets are small, immature onion bulbs that are incredibly easy to plant. You simply press them into the loosened soil, pointed side up, so that just the very tip is showing above the surface. Space them about 4 to 6 inches apart. For potatoes, you'll start with seed potatoes from a nursery, which are certified disease-free. If they are large, you can cut them into pieces, making sure each piece has at least 1 or 2 eyes or buds on it. Let the cut pieces dry for a day or two, then plant them in a trench about 4 inches deep and 12 inches apart, with the eyes facing up. Both onions and potatoes are incredibly rewarding to grow, and planting them in March ensures they have the long, cool growing season they need to produce a fantastic crop. Let's shift our focus to a weekend warrior project. Tool time. Your garden tools are your best partners in the garden, and starting the season with them in poor condition is like a chef trying to cook with dull knives. It's inefficient and can even harm your plants. Gather all of your tools: shovels, trowels, pruners, hoes, and rakes. First, give them a thorough cleaning. Use a wire brush to scrub off any caked-on mud and rust. Wash them with soap and water and dry them completely to prevent new rust from forming. This is also a great time to organize your tool shed or storage area. Having a designated spot for each tool makes them easy to find and keeps them in better condition. A little time spent on maintenance now will make every single garden chore you do this year easier and more enjoyable. Let's do a deep dive on why sharp shears and spades matter so much. When you use dull pruners on a rose bush or a tree branch, you don't make a clean cut. Instead, you crush and tear the plant's tissues. This ragged wound is much harder for the plant to heal and creates a wide-open invitation for diseases and pests to enter. A sharp, clean cut, on the other hand, heals quickly and cleanly. The same principle applies to your digging tools. A sharpened edge on a shovel or a hoe slices through the soil and stubborn roots with ease, requiring far less effort from you. You can sharpen your tools at home with a simple mill file. Just follow the original angle of the tool's bevel, pushing the file in one direction away from you. After sharpening, wipe the metal parts with an oiled rag to protect them from rust. This step transforms your tools from frustrating obstacles into efficient extensions of your own hands. Saturday's strategy is all about compost and mulch magic. Your compost pile has likely been dormant all winter. Now is the time to wake it up. If it isn't frozen, give the pile a good turn with a pitchfork. This aerates the pile, mixes the materials, and kickstarts the decomposition process. If the pile seems dry, add a little water as you turn it. You're aiming for the consistency of a wrung-out sponge. This is also the time to start a new pile with the debris you cleared from your garden beds earlier in the week. March is also the time to assess your mulch situation. Mulch is a layer of material, like wood chips, straw, or shredded leaves, that you spread on top of your soil. Check your supply and arrange for a delivery if you need more. Having a big pile of mulch ready to go will be a huge time saver in the coming months. While it may be a bit early for a thick, heavy layer of mulch, applying a light layer now can have significant benefits. This is especially true in beds where you have just planted your cool season crops or where perennials are emerging. A thin layer of finely shredded leaves or compost, about an inch deep, acts as a protective blanket for the soil. It helps to suppress the first wave of annual weeds that are just waiting for the sun to germinate. It also helps to moderate soil temperature, protecting tender new roots from any late-season frosts or cold snaps. Most importantly, it helps to conserve moisture in the soil, which is crucial as the winds of March can be very drying. This early mulching is a proactive step that protects your investment of time and seeds and gives your young plants a safe, stable environment to begin their growth. Finally, we arrive at Sunday's blueprint, planning and journaling. With a clean and prepped garden space, now is the perfect time for the final, detailed planning phase. Get out a notebook or a garden planner and sketch out your vegetable beds. Decide exactly where each crop will go. Remember to practice crop rotation, meaning you don't plant the same family of vegetables in the same spot year after year. This is a key strategy for preventing the build-up of soil-borne diseases and pests. A garden journal is also one of the most powerful tools a gardener can have. Use it to record what you planted and where, the dates you sowed your seeds, and when they germinated. Throughout the season, you can make notes on which varieties performed well and which ones struggled. This record becomes an invaluable, personalized guide for future gardening seasons. As your first big week of March comes to a close, do one last walkthrough. This is your final check and a moment for future prep. Lightly water any seeds you've sown directly in the garden if there hasn't been any rain. Check on your indoor seedlings and rotate the trays to ensure they are all getting even light. As you look at your clean, amended and planned-out garden, take a moment to appreciate the foundation you've built. You've turned the overwhelming chaos of March into a series of deliberate, impactful actions. You are no longer behind. You are perfectly positioned for the explosion of growth that April will bring. This weekly rhythm of observing, preparing, planting, and planning is the secret to a less stressful and far more successful gardening season. You've officially set the stage for a spectacular year. So there you have it. The secret to conquering the garden in March isn't about working harder, it's about working smarter. It's about transforming a daunting list of chores into a structured, week-long plan that builds momentum. By starting with observation, moving to soil preparation, strategically starting seeds, pruning with purpose, and finishing with a solid plan, you've laid the groundwork for an entire season of success. You've taken control of the most unpredictable month of the year and turned it to your advantage. The work you've done this week and throughout this month will pay dividends in the form of healthier plants, fewer problems, and a more abundant harvest. Thank you so much for joining us and investing this time in your garden's future. If this guide was helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more gardening tips. Now, I want to hear from you. What is the number one most important task you plan to accomplish in your garden this March? Let us know in the comments below.